number 10 spot, we have the first UFO sighting. In 1760, it was just another regular morning when all of New England awoke to a strange noise. No one could identify what the noise was coming from, but they did know that it was indeed coming from the sky. Many witnesses saw a strange glowing shape in the sky. It was broad daylight, so it wasn't a star or the night's darkness tricking their eyes. People saw the light in Roxbury and Bridgewater, Massachusetts. It's one thing if 2 people saw it, it's another if it's many people across 2 towns. The local paper even wrote about it at the time. It became the first UFO sighting of the area, and it wasn't the last. In our number 9 spot, we have the mythical thunderbird. There is a bird that a lot of the indigenous tribes of the area believe in, and this bird is called the thunderbird. And there are quite a lot of sightings of this bird. The thunderbird is a huge bird that is believed to have magical powers. There is a swamp called Hockomock Swamp in the Bridgewater Triangle, and that is where the bird has been spotted. People have described it as being a giant pterodactyl-like creature. In 1971, a police sergeant by the name of Thomas Downey was driving through the Bridgewater Triangle when he said that he saw a 6-foot-tall creature with a wingspan nearly double its size. He apparently watched the bird fly off. That's wild. Well, if there has been many sightings, then it could very well be true. In our number 8 spot, we have the Bridgewater Curse. So, people believe that the reason there are so many strange occurrences in this area is because way back when, a chief put a curse on the land. As the story goes, in 1675, Chief Metacom, also known as King Philip of the Wampanoag tribe, cast a curse on his deathbed. There was a war at the time called the King Philip's War, where the indigenous peoples of this tribe tried to drive the English colonists out of New England. The chief was lying in the swamp when he placed a curse upon the land before he passed away in the mud. Pretty iconic, if true. I wish I was around before to know if weird things happened before, because if they didn't, then obviously the curse is real. Will someone invent a time machine already? In our number 7 spot, we have satanic cults. Apparently, some strange discoveries were made in the 90s that led a lot of people to believe that the area was filled with satanic cults. The police of the area discovered a bunch of mutilated cows in the forest. This was going on for quite some time, and the only thing they concluded was that it must be for some kind of ritual ceremony. The people responsible were never actually caught, so the idea around it being the Satanists is just speculation and suspicion. Personally, I'm wondering if anyone considered the Thunderbird theory. What if it was the bird eating the cows? Dun dun dun. In our number 6 spot, we have the triangular object. This is another notable UFO sighting from inside the triangle that many have witnessed. It happened on the night of July 3rd, 1972. A large triangular object was spotted in the sky. Apparently, it was the size of a baseball diamond and translucent. At least 26 people confirmed seeing it, they say, and the naval base at the time had calls off the hook. Whoa. What's interesting is that the triangular shaped object is also what NASA caught on camera and released to the public not too long ago. How wild to have witnessed this. In our number 5 spot, we have the red-headed hitchhiker. Apparently, there are a lot of spooky stories and sightings of this hitchhiker, but this one is one of the scariest. A man and a woman are driving along Route 44 when they pulled over to find a payphone. On his way to the payphone, the man saw a red-headed stranger walking along, and he looked like he needed help. The man went up to the red-headed guy and asked if he needed help. He didn't reply. The man noticed that the red-headed man looked ghostly and his face was a bit contorted. The man, of course, was frightened, and so he ran back to his car when he saw his wife standing outside of the car frightened. She said that she turned on the radio in the car and heard horrible laughter and a sort of taunting voice that called her by her name. I wonder if this is where the whole joke of redheads, not having souls originated from. I assumed it was from South Park or Family Guy, but maybe they were inspired by this story. Who knows? In our number 4 spot, we have a sphere of fire. Okay, this one is fascinating to me, and this alone makes me want to pack up my things and drive to the triangle. Apparently, there are many occurrences at night in the area where many people have witnessed a sphere of fire in the sky. It's almost like the aliens are playing a joke on the people in this area. Na 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 boo boo, we keep revealing ourselves to taunt you and you can't do anything about it and no one will believe you. Ha. That's how I picture the aliens behaving. I wonder if there is some underground government base in this area, because then that would further explain all of this. All of these strange occurrences can't just be because a chief put a curse on the town, right? Multiple witnesses spotted balls of fire in the sky in 2011. Many reports were actually filed on this incident. In our number 3 spot, we have the ghost trucker. Okay, this one kind of made me laugh because I truly wonder if this is just a trucker that is bored and likes to pull pranks on people, or whether this is a legit ghost, but you can decide. So apparently there are quite a few stories of people who have seen a ghostly trucker on Copacabana Road in Fall River, Massachusetts. Apparently this trucker has a loud horn and it terrorizes motorists at night. It has been reported that headlights appear to be coming towards the witnesses, then the driver will honk its horn, and then when the witness will look closer at the truck and the person driving it, it will then disappear. Pretty wild. Especially if you're a bit, tired at night, I could see how this may shake someone up to witness this. In our number 2 spot, we have sacred land. A lot of people may not realize this, but there were once quite a lot of indigenous tribes in this area, and there were unfortunately a lot of massacres as well. This land was once considered sacred, and so with all of the bloodshed on it, it makes sense that it might be haunted with spirits of the past. There have been so many reports of upset spirits in the area, and most specifically in an area called Profile Rock. This was considered sacred land, and there is a legend that indigenous warriors dance there and scare off any people who come near the land. It makes sense. Let them have their land and rest in peace. In our number 1 spot, we have Bigfoot. I couldn't finish this list without including the man, the myth, the legend, Bigfoot. There have been a number of reported discoveries of Bigfoot in the Bridgewater Triangle, which may be surprising to hear as he is usually spotted more on the California coast, but perhaps this is Bigfoot's long-lost cousin, or younger brother that was separated at birth. There have been reports by the media, business owners, and even the police that have said that they have spotted a man that is half ape and half man. It was said in 1970 2 police officers reported their car being lifted off the ground, and when they finally got a good look at who was doing this, they saw a big man that looked like a bear. It went straight into the woods after that. They, along with many, are convinced that they spotted Bigfoot, but there are also other sightings of mysterious cryptid creatures wandering around in this area too.
Number 10. The Growing Doll. Let's kick off this list with one that definitely terrifies me the most. If you think dolls are creepy, then just wait until I tell you about this one. In 1918, a man in Japan purchased a seemingly normal doll for his sister. Unfortunately, the sister passed away soon after, so the family created a shrine in her memory and placed the doll within it. As time passed, however, they noticed something incredibly unsettling about the doll. It was growing hair. That's right, the hair on the doll was getting longer and longer as more time passed. Because of this, they believed that the doll had become possessed with the restless spirit of the little girl. As a result, they entrusted it to the care of a temple where it still remains to this day, growing more hair. You are able to go to the temple and visit the doll, but photography is strictly prohibited. The priests at the temple say that the doll's hair has now grown down past its knees, and they say that her mouth is opening, slowly growing human teeth. Number 9. Inunaki Tunnel. Deep within the mountains of Fukuoka, Japan, you will find the Inunaki Tunnel, home to a dark and troubled history. In 1988, the remains of a young man were found within the tunnel, having been killed by a group of teenage boys. It has also historically been a training ground for Buddhist practitioners who say that the tunnel is a spiritual hotspot for lost souls. As a result, the tunnel has been sealed off with concrete blocks, but there is an opening at the top where anyone who's foolish enough can climb up and sneak inside. People who have gone inside have reported the feeling of being watched by a malicious energy, with reports of camera malfunctions, paranormal activity, and unidentifiable noises taking place within the tunnel. Some people say that they can hear the cries of the man who died within, his spirit potentially haunting the now abandoned place. Number 8. Buddha statue. In 2014, an ancient golden Buddha statue was examined and researchers discovered a horrifying secret hidden within. X-rays showed the body of a real monk that had been mummified within the statue, sitting in the exact same position. Researchers believe that the man had taken part in a process known as self-mummification. Centuries ago, this was a common practice for Buddhist monks across Asia. To avoid fat and moisture causing their bodies to decay after they died, they would eat little to nothing in the time leading up to the end of their lives, eating things like pine needles, tree bark, and sesame seeds. This process would last for years as they got older, and they would then ingest a poisonous sap to finally end their lives. Researchers believe that the man inside the statue was a Buddhist monk who died around the year 1100. What was most unsettling though was that the man's body was basically hollow, containing papers covered in messages instead of his organs. Number 7. Kappa remains. The kappa is a cryptid that is native to Japan. For anyone who doesn't know, a cryptid is described as an animal whose existence or survival to the present day is disputed or unsubstantiated. Some famous cryptids include Bigfoot, Mothman, and the Loch Ness Monster. A kappa is a water creature that is described as being green, having a scaly skin and webbed feet, long elastic arms, and looking humanoid. They are said to lure people to pools of water where they then drown them. If you're looking to avoid being drowned, then it is recommended to carve your name and birth date on a cucumber and feed it to a kappa, because then they'll apparently leave you alone forever. In May of 2014, the remains of an actual kappa were supposedly discovered and then put on display. They were apparently from a kappa that was killed all the way back in the year 1818. It doesn't seem to have been confirmed what the remains are, so could this be actual evidence of cryptids being real? Number 6. Goddess of Death. If you're a fan of cursed objects, then let me introduce you to this statue titled the Woman of Lem, also known as the Goddess of Death statue. It is crafted out of limestone around 3500 BC and was discovered in Cyprus in 1878. I know what you're thinking, isn't Cyprus a part of Europe and not Asia? Well, actually, while the country of Cyprus is culturally and politically a part of Europe, it is geographically in Asia and considered transcontinental. So it counts. And if you think it doesn't count, you can take it to the complaints department. Alright, back to why this statue is cursed. Every single family that it has belonged to over the generations has died. The first family to own it had 6 members, all of whom died within 7 years of coming into ownership. The second owner's family died after only 4 years. The third family to own it also started passing away, but the 2 remaining members seemed to realize what was happening and donated it to the Royal Scottish Museum. Number 5. King Tut's Trumpets. Let's take a look at some more cursed objects, this time from King Tut's tomb in Egypt. In 1922, a group of archaeologists entered King Tut's tomb and found many interesting objects, including a set of wooden, silver, and bronze trumpets. In 1939, BBC Radio recorded the sound of the trumpets so that people could hear the ancient instruments being played. A few months later, World War II began, and a legend started that the trumpets were capable of summoning wars. Egyptian trumpets have apparently often been used on the battlefield for alerting and directing soldiers, so the legend isn't completely unfounded. And there are Egyptian archaeologists that believe trumpets have mystical powers in relation to war. In 2011, an anonymous staff member had been photographing and documenting the trumpets and decided to play one of them. The Egyptian Revolution then taking place later that year. Number 4. Kala Bandar. Now let's travel to New Delhi, India for another apparent discovery of a real-life cryptid, this time one known as a Kala Bandar. In May of 2001, one of these creatures was apparently terrorizing New Delhi. They're described as being around 5 feet tall with thick black hair all over their body and glowing red eyes. It was also described as wearing a metal helmet and having metal claws. All over the city, reports started flooding in of attacks from the so-called Monkey Man, and citizens were terrified. A total of 3 3 people actually died as a result, from a woman falling down a staircase to 2 men who were cornered by the creature and fell from a building. Many reports came in of bites and scratches that had come from the creature, and people in the town were scared of even going outside, armed men guarding the neighborhoods at night. Eventually, sightings stopped coming in and the town was able to relax. Number 3. The Terracotta Army. In China in 1974, a group of farmers made one of the most significant archaeological discoveries ever. They were digging a well when they found what they thought was a statue of Buddha. In fact, it was the famous Terracotta Army. The army consists of over 8,000 foot soldiers, chariots, and horses, which were buried along the first Chinese emperor back in the year 210 BC. They were built to commemorate his massive empire. As it turns out, the Terracotta Army may be cursed, the farmers believing that any disruption to the army would bring misfortune, and as time went on, this seemed to be true. The farmers and land were taken over by the government, business officials, and third-party groups who wanted to take advantage of and profit off the army. The farmland was demolished and replaced with gift shops and attractions. The original farmers have passed away except for 2 who now work in the same shops that took over their land, signing autographs for a mere $2 a day. Number 2. Lady Di. When we think of well-preserved specimens, we often think of creatures that were held in ice before being discovered thousands of years later, often still having hair, skin, and even blood in their veins. So now let me tell you about Lady Di, a human woman who was kept perfectly preserved inside an airtight tomb for 2,000 years. Researchers discovered the tomb of the woman in 1971, the wife of an important Han Dynasty administrator who passed away in 163 BC and received the burial of a royal. She was placed in a crypt with over 1,000 luxurious items like makeup and 162 statues who would be her servants in the afterlife. Thanks to the seal of the tomb, when she was found 2,000 years later, she was still in incredible condition. She had soft skin and hair and even eyebrows and eyelashes, and they were even able to find her last meal, which was melon, and the cause of her death, which had been a heart attack. Unfortunately, since she was discovered, her body has now started to decay, and only pictures can show what she used to look like. Number 1. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond was first discovered in a mine in India, triangular in shape and being described as a beautiful violet color. It was then placed in a statue from which it was apparently later stolen, the thief suffering from an extremely unfortunate death. Since then, it has been said that the Hope Diamond is cursed, anyone who has owned it or even merely touched it having a similar fate. Some owners include Jacques Collet, who took his own life, Princess de Lamballe, who was killed in the French Revolution, and Jean Le Tavernier, who was killed by a pack of wild dogs. The diamond finally came into ownership of Harry Winston, who made the wise choice of donating it to the Smithsonian in 1958, where it remains to this day. There are many more tales of owners who were apparently cursed by the diamond, so feel free to look it up if you're interested. Since the diamond made its home in the Smithsonian, the curse has supposedly ended, and there have been no more reported victims of the jewel.
Coming in at number 10. How ambitious were our ancestors when it came to hunting game? Apparently very, according to paleontologists who unearthed over 200 ancient mammoth skeletons beneath an airport construction site in Mexico City. Now we know humanity has been responsible for more than one extinction already, so it's not off the table with the skeletal find. The reason as to why so many bones have been found in the same place remains to be seen, however. But scientists propose 2 potential explanations. One, they went there of their own accord to graze the grass and have some lunch, or they were chased into the mud because humans were hungry. Which one do you think is more likely? But going by the way I feel when I'm hungry, I'm definitely going with the latter. But still, who knows? Coming in at number 9, the discovery of Atlantis. Maybe? We all know the legend of Atlantis and have all dreamed about finding a lost city while snorkeling in the ocean or in our pools at home, or maybe that's just me, but scientists think that they may have found the origin of the famous legend. A group of islands in Santorini, Greece that roughly cover 120 miles could be all that's left of what was Atlantis. Plato said that the city was drowned by a massive wave, and researchers believe that it was indeed a tsunami that was triggered by the eruption of volcano Thera almost 3,500 years ago. Thera was the most powerful eruption ever witnessed, and the horror that came after it may have inspired the legend. England. Based on new evidence found on the seafloor off the coast of Caesarea, scientists now believe that this wave raced over 600 miles across Santorini. Anyone watching from afar would have witnessed the people and the architecture of the Minoan Empire dragged beneath the waves. Still, despite these discoveries, some even think that Atlantis resides in the Bahamas, or even Japan, or maybe in my pool in the backyard. I guess there's no harm in looking, so get your scuba gear ready. Next up, we have one for all the mummy fans. Coming in at number 8, we have the discovery of over 160 coffins discovered in Saqqara, Egypt this last year. The Saqqara necropolis is a burial ground in the ancient capital of Memphis that has been undergoing excavation for over 3 years. This is the first time these coffins have seen the light of day, or any other humans for that matter, in 2,500 years. One of the mummies, which was wrapped in cloth, was discovered through X-ray technology to be so well preserved that the entire inner structure was intact. Along with the mummies and sarcophagi, 40 artifacts have been found as well, including funerary masks and figurines. There is no doubt that there will be plenty more to reveal in the coming year, along with plenty more questions. Coming in at number 7, we're going all the way back 5,000 years ago. If you're a fan of Outlander or just tried and true mysteries altogether, you know about Stonehenge. But for those who don't, well, I'll just tell you. Stonehenge is an ancient circular structure of megaliths dating back all the way to 2500 BCE in Salisbury, Wiltshire, England. 92 stones, all ranging in size, make up the structure, but no one knows who built it for sure and where they come from. The smaller stones in the center, called blue stones, have been traced back to Wales, but up until last July, no one had any idea where the Silcrete Sarsen stones traced to. But according to an article published in July 2020, scientists now believe that these stones hail from Westwood, Wiltshire, around 25 kilometers north of the site. But the question still remains, how did they get to Salisbury? The Sarsen megaliths weigh individually around 50,000 pounds and somehow ended up 25 kilometers south of where they came from. Someone had to drag them there, but the question of who and how still remains. Now it's time to look to the sky. There are plenty of mysteries in the great beyond and scientists can't get enough of them. If you've ever watched a science fiction show or TV show, then you're familiar with black holes as pretty effective plot devices. Coming in at number 6, we have the discovery of a new type of black hole, one based on a theory Einstein predicted 100 years ago. In 2020, researchers at Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, aka LIGO, announced that they had yet again discovered ripples in space-time. What? What does that mean? These ripples are called gravitational waves, which are a result of two massive objects colliding in space, i.e. black holes or neutron stars. The last recorded similar disturbance was in 2019, a result of two neutron stars, which are dense remnants of dead stars, colliding. But this time, they didn't find any sign of collision, which means that the theory of two neutron stars colliding and immediately forming a black hole can in fact happen. Einstein predicted this a century ago, though he never thought that we would be able to measure gravitational waves. Scientists still want to wait and accumulate more examples of the phenomenon before officially classifying it as a new kind of black hole, but still, it definitely makes you wonder what other predictions have been made that are waiting out there to be discovered. Which brings me to number 5, the search for signs of life continues as scientists discover a substance produced by anaerobic microbes on Earth in Venus's atmosphere. Phosphine is often produced by volcanoes or lightning strikes, but with the amount they found in the atmosphere, it had to be made by something else. Anaerobic microbes also produce phosphine here on Earth, which gives scientists the idea that there could be some kind of life just next door. After more tests, however, it turns out that there wasn't nearly as much in the atmosphere as initially predicted. But even with a smaller amount, there is still a chance of life on Venus. I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to welcoming some new neighbors. But Venus may not be the only place to find life or even to home. Coming in at number 4, the exciting new discovery of water on Ceres, the largest dwarf planet located on the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Of course, scientists don't think that Earth can be our home forever, so we're always looking for new real estate, and we may have found one. In August 2020, NASA's Dawn orbiter captured images of water seeping onto the surface of Ceres. The search for a habitable planet with water is crucial when seeking out a potential new home, so of course this got scientists super excited. It's speculated that the water comes from a saltwater reservoir located 25 miles beneath Ceres Okator crater. It could be hundreds of miles wide, and some scientists even speculate a reservoir the size of an ocean. Should the call arise, are you ready to pack your bags and go where few have gone before? But coming back down to our beautiful home we call Earth, we've got number 3 coming in very, very hot. We are getting closer and closer to number 1, and if you're enjoying these crazy universal finds, go ahead and click the like button and subscribe for more mysteries. This one really gets me excited, because according to a study published on January 28, 2020, we have now found the oldest recorded material on Earth to date. Scientists analyzed fragments of meteors in Australia that apparently contain stardust from 5 to 7 billion years ago. That's older than the oldest rock formations on the planet, which date to around 4.4 billion years. Why is this so exciting? Well, I'll tell you. The evidence found within these materials support a theory that the majority of the stars formed in an explosion over 7 billion years ago instead of gradually over time. It always blows my mind to think that life just exploded into existence. I mean, come on, how cool is that? So we've talked about potential new life on Venus and water on Ceres, but what about actual aliens? Are they out there? And better yet, already here? Well, among some of the weird crazy things that happened in 2020, someone may have let it spill that aliens do exist and they have been trying to contact us. Former Israeli space security chief says that aliens exist and that ex-President Trump knows about it. The former head of Israeli Defense Ministry's Space Directorate claimed that the unidentified flying objects have asked not to publish that they are here, but humanity is not ready yet. He also claims that the extraterrestrials are curious and want to understand the fabric of the universe. Ashed then goes on to say that President Trump was aware and was going to tell the world before being persuaded to keep the news to himself in order to prevent hysteria. I mean, like we didn't have enough to deal with in 2020. He also continues to say that there is an underground base in Mars which includes both American and alien representatives. This story sounds super insane and definitely too good to be true. So is it? Who knows? I guess we will find out for sure when the time is right. And last but not least, we have to end at number 1 on one of the biggest and creepiest mysteries of the universe that still have scientists baffled. Landing on number 1, let's talk about dark energy. The universe is said to be made from 5% actual matter and 25% dark matter. So what's the extra 70%? At the rate the universe is expanding, scientists think that the rest of the universe is a substance called dark energy. That sounds like a supervillain, a force with enough power to tear the universe apart. While dark matter tries to tie particles together, dark energy does the exact opposite. The idea of dark energy surfaced in 1998 when a supernova observed through the Hubble Space Telescope showed that the universe expanded at a slower pace in the past than it does today. Scientists then realized that in fact, gravity wasn't slowing down the expansion of the universe. In fact, it wasn't slowing down at all, it was accelerating, and they didn't know why or what was causing it. Einstein was the first person to realize that empty space was not nothing, and one explanation for what dark energy is the property of space. Theorists still don't quite know how to explain this, so for now they have given it the name of dark energy.
At number 10 we have an Octopus Nursery. 8-legged alien looking things with suction cups all over their arms and beaks for mouths. Octopus are creepy looking things, and to top it all off they can camouflage like a Navy SEAL, and they are super smart. If these are the kind of things that make your skin crawl, then just running into one of these guys would probably freak you out. Well, on the underwater expedition at the Davidson Seamount, there was a rather shocking discovery. They had a remote probe that was on the ocean floor around 10,000 feet, and they came across which seemed to be an octopus that was next to not just one, not just two, but a group of 1,000 octopuses in a nursery. They were all there laying their eggs and using the heat from the volcanic vent to keep them warm. I would hate to be the guy who accidentally steps into that crack and then gets devoured by thousands of sticky arms. But if you're at 10,000 feet underwater, you probably are already screwed. At number 9 we have the Siberian lake monster. Of course, if we're doing a list of scary things that live underwater, we have to throw a giant mysterious sea monster on here. What separates the Siberian lake monster from other more popular guys that we have seen like Loch Ness and that kind of stuff is that underwater scans have actually picked this guy up. This thing is deep in Lake Labinkur, and some radar has shown that it looks like a 33-foot long creatures living there. Now this is probably just a skeleton, but if this thing is dead, it means that there was once a giant man-eating monster in this lake. I thought we were supposed to be safe in freshwater. They've nicknamed this thing the Devil, so you know he's a good time and loves company. So next time you go up to the cottage and you're swimming in the water and you feel safe, remember there might be a giant monster lurking underneath the water ready to turn you into a side dish. At number 8 we have the blue hole. Now there are several blue holes in the world. There's one in Belize, there's one in the Red Sea, there's a giant one in my heart that was left there from when Reboot ended on a cliffhanger. How are you going to end a show that so many people fell in love with on a cliffhanger? I will never trust again. Well, this one is between Cape Verde and the Caribbean islands. Scientists are really confused about this thing. It's a crack in the bottom of the ocean floor and is several thousand miles long. What's strange about this is there's no explanation of how this happened. It might have been tectonic plates moving around, but when this happened, the Earth will probably start to repair itself and there's been no sign of this. My theory is this is where Godzilla goes to sleep at night. I mean, it seems like the most logical answer. It's either that or the gateway to hell. Like, come on guys, I'm doing real science work here. At number 7 we have the Theyanaguni Complex. This was discovered by scuba divers in the 1980s. I think that's the scariest part about this one. Could you imagine going scuba diving back in the 80s? The technology back then must have been a tube going up to some guy who would blast fresh air down to you using a bicycle pump. I don't even think they had decompression sickness figured out back then. The chances of you coming up the bends was probably super high. Well, if it wasn't for a few divers in Japan who were willing to sacrifice it all to look at some cool stuff, we wouldn't know anything about the Theyanaguni Complex. It's still a mystery as to what this thing is. It looks like some temples that might have existed thousands of years ago, but when the ice age decided to melt, it would have covered this entire area. This could be why an entire civilization got plunged underwater. Or the temple could have been on a cliff, and then when a massive earthquake hit, it knocked the temple into the water. But like everything in life, there are some haters who say this whole thing is just a natural rock formation. Some people just want to ruin everything. At number 6 we have Anacorasista Twista. One of the reasons why the underwater world is such a mystery is because we find things like this in there. Sure, there are beautiful things down there like bright fish and chubby marine mammals, but there's also the unknown, unidentified organisms like Anacorasista Twista, which should be the name of an 80s hair metal band. But what is this thing? Well, it's a protist. And what is a protist, you may ask? Well, it's an organism that doesn't belong to any animal group, fungus, or plant group. What does that mean? I really have no idea, you guys. I think it means it could be an alien. Some alien came down to Earth for a swim and then scraped its knee on some coral, and now we have alien creatures running around the ocean, probably waiting for you to pee so it can swim up your pee hole and then work its way into your brain. It's really the only logical answer. At number 5 we have the Bimini Road. How were the pyramids made? Was it aliens coming down to share their technology and secrets with us, or was it just thousands upon thousands of slaves who sacrificed their lives and their spines to build them? Well, we don't know and we may never know, but the Bimini Road is another one of these mysteries. It's off the coast of the Bahamas, and it looks like it could have been a pathway that was placed perfectly with giant slabs of rock. Similar to the way the pyramids were made, it seems that these large slabs of rock were too large to be moved by man, and also like the pyramids, these giant slabs were also perfectly placed so well. So where does everyone's mind go when something like this happens? Well, magic or aliens. The logical answer is that this is a natural phenomenon of the water moving and hitting the rocks to make these formations, but people think that this was made using advanced technology from aliens and could have been the road to Atlantis. Honestly, I like the Atlantis theory much better. It's more fun. At number 4 we have Colossal Squid. Yeah, this thing is a big no thanks for me. So everyone always talks about how there might be sea monsters out there, but this thing actually exists. There's never been one caught alive, but several have washed onto shores dead, and they are massive. The largest one ever discovered was 45 feet long, and it was dead. So you know there was an even bigger one out there that killed this guy. They don't even have suckers on their tentacles, they have hooks. Let me say that again. This squid has 10 giant arms covered in hooks. This thing is straight out of a horror movie. Scientists aren't even sure what something this big eats. They think it probably feeds on whales or your deepest, darkest fears. I wouldn't be surprised if the colossal squid works part-time as a gatekeeper for hell. It makes me think that the old Greek stories about the Kraken might have been real. At number 3 we have underwater circles. Giant formations of circles that are formed underwater and nobody knows how they got there. These mysteries were discovered off the coast of North Carolina, Florida, and Belize. Now what are are they? Like many things on this list, myself and the entire scientific community have no idea. But here are some theories. Maybe they were formed naturally by either two things, water currents or some sort of animal mating ritual. Another idea is that these things were made by ancient civilizations before the Ice Age. All these things would have been above ground and might have been art left over by some old-timey tribes. And the third theory is that they look kind of like a bullseye, so it might be some sort of nuclear missile target, and if you hit it hard enough, the explosion will cause some sort of major natural disaster like an earthquake or tsunami. Or if we're lucky, both. At number 2 we have Megalodon. If you have a fear of sharks, you're gonna love this one. Megalodon was a prehistoric shark that was even bigger than the giant hooked tentacle beast that was earlier on this list. If you've already forgotten about the Colossal Squid, it clocked in at around 45 feet long, where Megalodon was closer to 60 feet long. It was a 60-foot shark that could probably rip a blue whale in half in one bite. Well, maybe not that, but it was still a gargantuan creature with teeth the size of Brock Lesnar's fists. This thing wouldn't even chew you, it would just swallow you whole and then fart your skeleton out into the dark cold ocean. At number 1 on our list, we have Giant Eyeball. A mysterious giant eyeball washed onto the shore of a Florida beach back in October of 2012. I don't know any other kind of giant eyeball other than a mysterious one. There's no super common regular giant eyeball just lying around. But this is also Florida. This is the state where people smoke crack at weddings and kiss alligators on the lips, so maybe it's a little more common over there. Well, this giant eyeball was found by Gino Cavalci, and he didn't know what the hell to make of it, so he took it home and then stuck it in his freezer. Then he called the cops, and the cops came in and told him, "We don't do giant eyeballs on the beach. You have to call the wildlife people." And then he called the wildlife people, and they were like, "What the hell is that?" And he was like, "I don't know, I brought it to you guys to try and figure out what it is." And then some people were like, "Maybe it's a sea monster," and other people were like, "No, it's probably from a marlin." And I think in the end, no one really knew what the hell it was. But just so you know, there's giant eyeballs out there just laying around the beach sometime.